Since entering the league in 2015, Stefon Diggs has racked in 3,493 yards and 24 touchdowns. But his most important moment, the Minneapolis Miracle, when he scored as time expired to beat the Saints in the 2017 NFC Divisional Round. Diggs has been a stud no matter who has been behind center for the Vikings. With his success in the league, you wonder how he didn't get taken until the 5th round, 146th overall. Today we're going to look into the 19 wide receivers drafted before Diggs and how their careers are doing so far.
If you plan on going to any events coming up, make sure you use SeatGeek to purchase your tickets. SeatGeek makes ticket buying easy by giving you a 1 to 10 score and even gives you a view of your seat.
You can use our code JDP at checkout to get $20 off your first purchase. Again, make sure to use SeatGeek when buying tickets and use code JDP at checkout for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get right back.
Diggs will receive scholarship offers from Florida, USC, Cal, Ohio State, Auburn, and the list continues. But Diggs chose to stay close to home and committed to the University of Maryland, College Park. As a true freshman, Diggs played in 11 of 12 games for Maryland, missing only one due to an ankle injury. That season, Diggs would acquire ACC Rookie of the Week 3 times and finish second in the ACC Freshman of the Year. He finished the season with 848 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. In his sophomore season, Diggs would play in 7 games due to receiving a season-ending injury against Wake Forest. He would finish the season with 587 yards and 3 touchdowns. In his junior season with Maryland, Diggs played in 10 games but again missed games due to injury. He would finish the season with 792 yards and 4 touchdowns. Diggs was projected as a 3rd or 4th rounder but would fall to the 5th round to be selected by the Minnesota Vikings. Diggs immediately made an impact for the Vikings in his rookie year with 720 yards and 4 touchdowns. He put together good seasons in 2016 and 2017 once again, accumulating for 1,752 yards and 11 touchdowns. And in the 2017 playoffs, everyone who didn't know Diggs learned who he was. Diggs scored to beat the Saints in the 2017 NFL Divisional Round after a last-second heave from Case Keenum. Last year, Diggs went for over 1,000 for the first time with 1,021 yards and added 9 touchdowns. Diggs has been an absolute difference maker since entering the league, and the Vikings' pick on a guy labeled injury prone has worked out. That being said, let's jump into those drafted before Diggs. The Oakland Raiders selected wide receiver Amari Cooper out of Alabama with the 4th pick in the 2015 NFL Draft. In Amari's freshman year of college, he played in all 14 games but didn't start until the last 9. He led his team with 52 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 11 touchdowns. In the 2013 National Championship against Notre Dame, Cooper led Alabama's receivers with 105 yards and 2 was traded to the Cowboys mid-year and returned to Pro Bowl form. He finished the year with 1,005 yards and 7 touchdowns. Cooper has been oddly inconsistent, and you can argue that he hasn't been as good as Diggs in recent years, but his talent is there, and ultimately the Raiders made a great pick. The Chicago Bears selected wide receiver Kevin White from West Virginia with the 7th pick in the draft. In his first season at West Virginia in 2013, he started 9 of 11 games and had 35 receptions for 507 yards and 5 touchdowns. White returned his senior season in 2014 as a starter. He finished the season with 109 receptions for 1,447 yards and 10 touchdowns. He was named an All-American by numerous publications. Unfortunately, not much is to be said about this wide receiver. Since being drafted by the Bears, White has been underwhelming and injury prone. From 2016 to 2017, he played in just 14 games, recording 285 yards. White now finds himself as a free agent, hoping a team is willing to take a chance on this once first rounder. He signed with the Cardinals but was released before the season. The fact that Diggs was selected in the 5th round behind White is a disgrace. The Miami Dolphins selected Devontae Parker out of Louisville with the 14th overall pick in the 2015 NFL Draft. Parker would attend Louisville for all 4 years, and as a true freshman in 2011, Parker appeared in 11 games. He finished 6th on the team with 18 receptions for 291 yards and led the team in touchdowns with 6. As a sophomore, Parker played in all 13 games and led the team with 744 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. He finished that season with 2 100-yard receiving games. Parker had a breakout year in his junior year, accumulating 885 yards and 12 touchdowns, including 3 100-yard receiving games. Unfortunately, in Parker's senior season, he missed the first 7 games due to a foot injury. He would still accumulate 855 yards and 5 touchdowns in the final 6 games of the season. Following Parker's senior season, he would declare for the 2015 NFL Draft. Coming into the league, Parker was praised for his performance from college. This allowed Parker to be picked in the 1st round. Parker has been okay in his career, but we've been waiting for a breakout season for him since entering the league. Overall, he has recorded 2,217 yards and 9 touchdowns since being drafted. We still await a Parker breakout, while Diggs is a top receiver in the league. The Philadelphia Eagles selected USC's Nelson Agholor with the 20th overall pick in the draft. As a true freshman at USC, Agholor played in 13 games as a backup receiver and acquired 340 yards and 2 touchdowns that season. In his sophomore season, Agholor got the opportunity he was seeking when promoted to a starter for the 2013 season. Agholor would take that opportunity and run with it, acquiring 918 yards and 6 touchdowns. That season, Agholor led the receivers on the team while also attributing to the return game. He was so successful at returning that he would be recognized as a second-team All-Pac-12 for his performances. Agholor would return hungry for his junior season, where he would acquire an astounding 1,314 yards and 12 touchdowns. That season, Agholor would be selected first-team All-Pac-12 for his efforts. Following this career-high season, Agholor decided it was best for him to forego his senior year and declare for the draft on a high note. At the Combine, Agholor impressed scouts with his success, but the real selling point for this player, other than his skills on the receiving end, was his talent as a return specialist. This raised Agholor's draft stock and allowed him to be taken in the first round. Agholor had just 648 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first 2 years in the league, but has recently become a solid wide receiver option for the Eagles. He has 1,504 yards and 12 touchdowns over the past 2 years and was part of the Eagles' 2018 Super Bowl championship team. Agholor has become solid, but not a stud in any means. With the 26th pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected Brashad Perriman. Perriman attended UCF from 2012 to 2014. His freshman season, Perriman played in 14 games and acquired 388 yards and 3 touchdowns. In his sophomore season, Perriman had 811 yards and 4 touchdowns. And in his last and final season with UCF, Perriman put up a career-high 1,044 yards and 9 touchdowns. Following this season, Perriman decided to forego his senior season and declare for the 2015 NFL Draft. Perriman did not perform at the Combine due to a hamstring injury sustained beforehand. That being said, Perriman still managed to put up impressive numbers at UCF's Pro Day. He ran 2 sub-4.3 40-yard dashes, which had him rise in draft stock, and some even had Perriman as a mid-first rounder. Ultimately though, he would be selected as a late first rounder. And unfortunately, before his rookie season, he suffered a season-ending injury. But in his second year in the league, Perriman looked solid and had 499 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Ravens, but has been a disaster since. He's spent time with the Redskins and the Browns since his time with the Ravens, and has just 417 yards and 2 touchdowns since his first year on the field. He currently resides with the Buccaneers. Perriman has time, but hasn't worked out so far. The Indianapolis Colts own the 29th pick in the NFL Draft, and with that pick, they selected wide receiver Philip Dorsett out of the University of Miami. Dorsett attended the University of Miami all 4 years of his college career. In his true freshman season, Dorsett played 12 games and recorded 147 yards and 1 touchdown. His sophomore year, Dorsett improved tremendously, recording 842 yards and 2 touchdowns. But unfortunately, following this great season, he would see a slump in his junior year due to a knee injury, recording just 272 yards and 2 touchdowns. In Dorsett's last and final season with Miami, he recorded a career-high 871 yards and 10 touchdowns. Dorsett then would declare for the draft. Dorsett hasn't stood out since entering the league, and in his 2 years with the Colts had just 753 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was traded to the Patriots in 2017 and has put up even worse numbers with just 484 yards and 3 touchdowns. That being said, he did win a Super Bowl in 2019, but overall, Dorsett has been a giant disappointment so far. With the 37th overall pick in the draft, the New York Jets selected Devin Smith out of Ohio State. Smith attended Ohio State from 2011 to 2014. In his first 3 seasons with the Buckeyes, Smith compiled 1,572 yards and 18 touchdowns. In Smith's senior season, he really got the opportunity to shine, earning himself 931 yards and 12 touchdowns that season. He would end his college career on a high note and declare for the draft. At the Combine, Smith impressed scouts, boasting a 4.4 second 40-yard dash. Smith's speed would be his main selling point, but with positives comes negatives, with saying he was too heavily reliant upon speed. Smith's draft comparison was Eagles wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, and he was projected as a second rounder. Since his entry into the league, Smith has been incredibly unimpressive, recording a total of 135 yards and only 1 singular touchdown. Unfortunately, Smith's career so far has been limited due to his 2 ACL injuries within his time in the league. In July of 2018, the Jets decided to waive Smith from the team, probably due to his history of injury and his tendency to not be able to perform. Smith signed with the Cowboys in January of 2019 and is currently on the team. Maybe this unimpressive player can make a comeback and keep a job in the league. league, but overall, this was a bad pick that the Jets regret. The Tennessee Titans owned the 40th overall pick, and with that pick, they selected Dorial Green Beckham out of Missouri. In Dorial's first season at Missouri, he appeared in the first 5 games of the season, before his arrest and suspension due to drug possession, which caused him to miss multiple games. Dorial would return for the second half of the season to complete the season with 395 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. In his next season with Missouri, Green would play in 14 games, accumulating 883 yards and 12 touchdowns, before being dismissed from Missouri due to legal troubles. In attempts to continue his college career, Green would transfer to the University of Oklahoma, but was refused the opportunity to play due to the NCAA's transfer policy. In a final attempt to play, Green attempted to post a waiver in order to make him eligible, just to be denied by the NCAA. Following this, Green would declare for the draft. At the combine, Green's past would come back to hurt him, with scouts saying that he was considered a problem child at Missouri, and kicked off the team at Missouri in April of 2014. Scouts were afraid of Green's ability to stay out of trouble. In Green's rookie season with the Titans, he recorded 549 yards and 4 touchdowns, before being traded to the Eagles for offensive tackle Dennis Kelly. With his time with the Eagles, he acquired 392 yards and 2 touchdowns in 15 games, before being waived by the team. Green during his time in the NFL couldn't make a breakthrough, nor could he escape his past of crime, with the most recent news of Green being his arrest with 8 pounds of marijuana. This pick was an overall waste. Green is already out of the league and doesn't seem to have a future in it. I'm sure the Titans would have loved to have Diggs on their squad instead. The Carolina Panthers selected Devin Funchess out of Michigan with the 41st overall pick. Funchess played for Michigan from 2012 to 2014. In Devin's first 2 seasons at Michigan, he was actually listed as a tight end before making the switch in 2014 to wide receiver. In his 3 years at Michigan, Funchess acquired a total of 1,715 yards and 15 touchdowns. In 2014, Funchess would announce that he would be foregoing his remaining eligibility and declared for the 2015 NFL Draft. The projected second rounder impressed scouts. They had this to say about Funchess: big receiver with the ability to mismatch corners in the red zone, and that he has long legs that can cover ground in a straight line. Since his time in the league, Funchess has been a reliable player for the Panthers, accumulating 2,223 yards and 21 touchdowns. Most recently, Funchess has signed a 1-year contract with the Indianapolis Colts. Overall, the Panthers didn't completely miss out with this pick, but Diggs is clearly the superior. The 69th overall pick in the draft was owned by the Seattle Seahawks. They selected Tyler Lockett out of Kansas State. At Kansas State, Lockett saw time not only as a wide receiver, but as a return specialist, accumulating 2,196 kick return yards and 488 punt return yards in his 4 years at Kansas. Not only did he see great success on special teams, but Lockett excelled at wide receiver, gaining 3,710 yards and 29 touchdowns in his 4 seasons. Following the 2014 season, Lockett would declare for the 2015. In his time with Seattle, Lockett has gained 2,781 receiving yards and 19 touchdowns, as well as 2,900 kick return yards and 1,002 punt return yards. He made first-team All-Pro and was a Pro Bowler in his rookie year as a return man. Lockett has not only attributed to the receiving core, but to the specialist team. The Seahawks should not regret taking this versatile weapon at the 69th pick, but Diggs is the more polished receiver. Jalen Strong out of Arizona State was selected with the 70th overall pick by the Houston Texans. Jalen Strong started his college journey at Pierce Community College before deciding to transfer to Arizona State. In Strong's junior year at Arizona State, he would put up extremely impressive stats, acquiring 1,165 yards and 10 touchdowns. Following the success of his junior season, Strong saw it fit to forego his remaining eligibility and declare for the 2015 NFL Draft. At the combine, scouts actually had Strong as a projected first or second rounder, yet somehow he fell to the third. The main knock on Strong is that he was still raw and learning to play the position, and that his play speed was average at best. While scouts did see concerning things about Strong, they still loved him for his overall game. Since entering the league, Strong has really yet to shine. Strong received significant playing time his rookie season, but overall did not impress and saw less and less playing time in the following seasons. In total, Strong has 333 yards and 4 touchdowns in his career so far, and now the free agent is looking for someone new to take the chance on him. This pick should haunt the Texans because not only did they pick him over Diggs, but they picked him over other reliable guys who would later go in the draft. This is honestly just a bad pick, and they took the leap of faith with the wrong guy. With the 76th overall pick in the draft, the Kansas City Chiefs selected Chris Conley out of Georgia. Chris Conley attended all 4 years at Georgia. In his 4 years at Georgia, Conley didn't see as much success as other recruits did, due to playing for a run-heavy Georgia offense, gaining a career high of only 657 yards in his senior season. Conley gained 1,938 yards and 20 touchdowns in total in his time at Georgia. Following his senior season, Conley would enter the draft. At the combine, Conley impressed scouts, placing in the top 5 of multiple workouts. While Conley is physically impressive, scouts weren't as impressed with his game, saying that he needs to add more polish to his routes to open wider throwing windows, and that he dropped way too many throws during drills at the combine. Scouts projected Conley to go in the 3rd round following his performance. Conley hasn't been been particularly impressive in his time in the league, recording just 1,238 yards and 6 touchdowns. He recently signed with the Jaguars, where he resides this year. Conley simply hasn't impressed, but can be a solid option at times. With the 87th pick in the 2015 draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers selected Sammy Coates out of Auburn. While at Auburn, Coates missed his true freshman season with a foot injury and played a limited role as a redshirt freshman. It was in his sophomore and junior seasons where Coates made a name for himself. He racked up 1,757 yards and 13 touchdowns in his time at Auburn. Prior to the draft, scouts liked Coates because he looked the part. However, his huge knock was ultimately true, calling him an unreliable target. Coates was at the end of the Steelers' depth chart as a rookie and caught a single pass for 11 yards. Unfortunately for Coates, 2016 was the only year he had over 100 yards, playing as the third wide receiver due to Martavius Bryant being suspended for the season. He had 435 yards and 2 touchdowns. Coates hasn't scored a touchdown since. He was traded to the Browns for the 2017 season and had 70 yards before getting cut. He was claimed by the Texans for 2018 and made a single catch for 12 yards before being released. This year, he signed with the Chiefs but was released soon after. Coates simply just hasn't worked out. The Green Bay Packers owned the 94th overall pick. They selected Ty Montgomery out of Stanford. Montgomery spent 4 years at Stanford, where he racked up 2,459 scrimmage yards and 19 touchdowns. But he was known more for his return ability, winning the Jet Award as the nation's best returner in 2014 and making first-team All-Pac-12. Going into the draft as a wideout, scouts said that his body type resembles that of a running back with well-defined muscular legs, but were worried because he doesn't display natural wide receiver characteristics. You'll see why that's funny. As a rookie, Montgomery had 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. He saw minimal playtime in 2016 until both starting running backs got hurt. Montgomery switched to running back and hasn't looked back. In 2016 and 2017, Montgomery put up 730 rushing yards and 521 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. The former wide receiver is known for pass catching abilities out of the backfield, obviously. Montgomery started the 2018 season with the Packers but was traded to the Ravens mid-season. On the year, he had 188 rushing yards and 235 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. He recently signed with the Jets and will serve as a backup for Le'Veon Bell. Montgomery is hard to evaluate now considering he's not a wide receiver, but it's safe to say Diggs is a better player. The Washington Redskins selected Jamison Crowder out of Duke with the 105th pick in the draft. In his time at Duke, Crowder made first-team All-ACC twice and had 3,641 yards and 23 touchdowns. He also had 5 punt return touchdowns. Scouts had some positive things to say about Crowder, including good route runner who consistently gets on top of defenders quicker than they expect. But the major knock on Crowder was that he lacks desired NFL size. Crowder immediately made an impact as a rookie for the Redskins, scoring 2 touchdowns and recording 604 yards. Over the next 2 seasons, Crowder established himself as a solid wide receiver, racking up 1,636 yards and 10 touchdowns. In 2018, he played in just 9 games due to injury and had 388 yards and 2 touchdowns. He signed with the Jets in the offseason. Crowder is a solid wide receiver and surprisingly better than most on the list, but not Diggs. With the 107th overall pick in the draft, the Atlanta Falcons selected Justin Hardy out of East Carolina. Hardy, unlike other prospects taken before him, boasted an incredible 4,541 yard and 35 touchdowns in his 4 years at ECU. Following an impressive college career, Hardy entered the draft. Scouts liked Hardy and called Hardy instinctive and said that he had good length for his height. His main knock was that he's not a threat to beat defenders with his speed, and Hardy ultimately was projected as a 4th or 5th rounder. Since his time in the pros, Hardy has accumulated 751 yards and 9 touchdowns. Honestly, at this point in the draft, this pick wasn't terrible. He wasn't a complete bust and still has a job to this day on the Falcons. Overall, this pick wasn't a waste, but they should still regret not taking the chance on Diggs. The Cleveland Browns owned the 123rd overall pick in the draft, and with that pick, they selected Vince Mayle, the now tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers, once played wide receiver for Washington State. In his senior season with the Cougars, Mayle boasted an astounding 1,483 yards and 9 touchdowns. Entering the draft, scouts were concerned with Mayle's experience, saying that he has limited playing experience and that he needs to learn to use his hands more effectively against press coverage. The scouts, however, did see some promise in Mayle with his size and speed. His draft comparison was Aaron Dobson. In his time in the league, Mayle has made the switch from wide receiver to tight end. Mayle has bounced around 4 different teams, and although Mayle has a job in the league today, he has yet to record a single receiving yard, and I'm sure the Browns wish they took a chance on Diggs today. With the 132nd overall pick in the draft, the San Francisco 49ers selected DeAndre Smelter out of Georgia Tech. Smelter was a sought-after baseball prospect and was even drafted by the Minnesota Twins in 2010, but he chose to decline to play baseball at Georgia Tech. After receiving shoulder problems, Smelter was forced to turn to football, playing only only 2 seasons as the starting wide receiver for Georgia Tech. In his senior year, Smelter accumulated 715 yards and 7 touchdowns before tearing his ACL in the season closer against the University of Georgia. Following this, Smelter entered the 2015 NFL Draft. In Smith's time in the league, he has only 23 receiving yards. Smelter hasn't been able to do anything in the league, and overall, Smelter has been a nobody and now finds himself as a free agent. The 49ers had a chance at a potential star and picked someone who hasn't been successful in the league. With the last and final pick before Diggs, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected Florida State's Rashad Green with the 139th overall pick in the draft. Green played for the Seminoles from 2011 to 2014. He had a great college career, including a BCS national championship. In his time at Florida State, Green acquired an astounding 3,380 yards and 29 touchdowns. Following his senior year, Green entered the draft. Going into the combine, Green was regarded as QB Jameis Winston's go-to guy. Scouts had this to say about Green: he creates leverage with his routes and can get on top of coverage quickly. The main knock on Green was his thin frame and that his play strength needs improvement. He entered the draft as a projected 3rd or 4th rounder. Since entering the league, his elite stats from college haven't followed him into the pros. Unfortunately, Green just didn't live up to his college hype and couldn't perform at a high enough level, and Green now finds himself as a free agent. He had just 185 yards and 2 touchdowns in his time with the Jaguars, tough being the last wide receiver taken before Diggs. And of course, with the 146th pick in the 5th round, the Minnesota Vikings took Maryland's Stefon Diggs. Diggs has been an absolute stud for the Vikings, and although he has dealt with some injuries, he's established himself as a top wide receiver in the league. Diggs is a stud, and the Vikings got one hell of a value taking him in the 5th round.
Thank you guys so much for watching the video. My name is Jackson.
And my name is Darren, and this is J&D Productions. So if you don't already know what type of videos we basically make videos revolving around sports. We eventually want to work to make this our full-time job, and we're working really hard currently to make great content for you guys.
And if there's anything you can do to help us, please share this video. Tell your friends about it, tell your family about it. Make sure you go share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of those above.
All
just media. Go help us grow. We're just trying to grow this channel. We're trying to make better content, and we really appreciate it if you help get the word out about our channel.
And if you guys want to help us out any more than you already have by sharing and watching this video, please go ahead and click that link down in the description for Patreon. If you guys don't know what a Patreon is, it helps us make better content for you guys. And that is strictly what it's for. We don't want to take your money. We don't want to steal your money. We just want to make better content for you guys. We're 2 broke college students, and we're just trying to make this our full-time gig. So if you have the generosity in your hearts to help us out a little bit more, please click that link down in the description.
But again, if you don't have the money, don't worry about it. We don't have money either. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you go share this video as much as you possibly can. Help us get our name out there. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.